Grizzly Gaz is a YouTube channel dedicated to camping, featuring dozens of videos that show Gaz, the creator, on hikes and camping trips across the UK with his French bulldog, Fendi. In many of his videos, Gaz faces extreme conditions and often documents unexpected encounters with large animals in the woods. In April 2023, Gaz uploaded a video of a hike in a forest in the UK. The first part of the trip went according to plan, showing Gaz setting up his tent and chopping wood for the fire, with Fendi keeping him company as the sun set. The following part was not recorded, but while Gaz was starting to prepare a steak dinner over the fire, an unknown man, dressed in jeans and a coat, approached the campsite asking for a beer and some food.
Aye. Pot boiling for some mash. And I've got a visitor. Creeped up behind me asking me if I had a light. I shit my pants. This is Martin anyway. I don't know him, but he's stopping for a steak.
Just some random creep wandering about.
You went round here in a poncho a couple of months ago, were you?
I don't think I was. I could have been.
Although the encounter with the man was relatively uneventful, it's still unsettling to be camping in the middle of the woods, far from civilization, and suddenly have a stranger approach you asking for things. If you listen carefully to his words, some of his sentences seem somewhat incoherent, and he tends to ramble, giving the impression that he's not entirely in a clear state of mind. Later in the video, Gaz reveals that the man, named Martin, was homeless. As they shared dinner, Martin told Gaz his story about how drug addiction had destroyed his life and how he ended up wandering the woods alone that day. What made the situation even more disturbing was that during their meal, Gaz briefly turned away to chop some wood for the fire. When he looked back, Martin had disappeared without a word, leaving the campsite unannounced and without even thanking Gaz for the food. Following the strange encounter, Gaz decided to pack up and leave the campsite. He feared that Martin might tell others about meeting someone camping alone in the woods with expensive filming equipment, potentially encouraging them to rob him, or worse, that Martin himself might return later in the night with harmful intentions. Gaz left a trail camera attached to a tree at the campsite to capture anything that might happen after he left. Reflecting on the encounter, it's difficult to determine Martin's true intentions. It's unclear whether he was simply confused or under the influence, or if he had something more sinister in mind. Regardless, it was probably wise for Gaz to leave the campsite and only return the following morning. However, when he did go back, he discovered that the trail camera he had left behind was completely missing. Since 2017, a YouTuber named Phil has been uploading videos of his hikes on his channel, Hike Slam, offering viewers a glimpse into everything he does to prepare for long walks, camping alone in the middle of the woods, choosing the right gear, and, more broadly, everything related to outdoor life. On the evening before Thanksgiving 2021, Phil went on a night hike to camp along the Appalachian Trail near his home in Virginia. For the first 30 minutes, the hike proceeded quite normally, but at one point he came across some odd-looking trash on the side of the trail. Curiously, some of the containers had writing on them that seemed to be song lyrics. It's hard to imagine why anyone would go through the trouble of writing entire songs or poems on plastic containers, only to leave them discarded on the trail. As he crossed the boundary into the wilderness, things became increasingly strange, and as he neared the campsite, Phil discovered another series of unsettling notes.
The weirdness continues. What the hell? There's a dead duck here.
Some of these notes appeared to contain cryptic poems, while others seemed to delve into detailed conspiracy theories about undercover federal agents or something similar. The rest appeared to be autobiographical, with the writer recounting parts of their life story. It's difficult to confirm whether the same person who wrote the notes was also responsible for killing the duck. But honestly, it would be too much of a coincidence for a dead duck to be lying right next to a series of creepy notes that had clearly been placed there recently. They were still in good condition and not wet. After taking in the eerie scene, Phil noticed a tarp and a fire near a campsite about 20 yards away from the notes in the duck. Choosing to keep his distance from the campsite, he continued hiking up the trail toward a shelter. Although this part wasn't caught on camera, Phil later reported encountering two women with their dog coming down the trail. They asked him if he had seen the person leaving creepy notes and dead animals along the path. When Phil mentioned seeing a campsite and a fire a few yards away from the notes, the women became frightened and asked him to walk back to their car with them. Thinking it was a good idea to stay far from the campsite, Phil agreed to accompany them back. Afterward, he resumed hiking in a different direction to find a safer place to spend the night. Thankfully, the rest of his hike to the new shelter was uneventful, and once he arrived, he set up camp for the night, built a fire, and enjoyed his dinner, now miles away from the disturbing notes he had encountered earlier. A few minutes after darkness fell, Phil decided to enter the shelter and look through the camp log to read notes and stories left by other hikers. That's when things became deeply unsettling again.
Check out the shelter log here. I hang out by the fire. Almost every shelter on the Appalachian Trail has a shelter log where people write in their trail names and what's going on. They can write whatever they want in there. So it's kind of cool tradition here. So let's see what this one says. Hiking again finally. Great day on the AT. This was in August. Someone left some PBRs here, I guess. It's nice and little trail magic. Some comics and writing and stuff. Alright, let's see what's happened recently. Holy crap. Wait a second. Hold on, I'm adjust the camera here. This writing looks almost exactly like the writing that was on that garbage a couple of miles from here.
Even though the shelter where Phil was staying was more than 2 miles away and on the opposite side of the road from the earlier campsite, the handwriting in the camp log was identical to that found on the notes and trash from the other side of the road. This discovery was disturbing enough, but it became even more unsettling when Phil started to read the content of the logbook.
In 2018, while I was incarcerated at the Okaloosa County Jail, what the heck? In solitary confinement, I figured the following out. Refer to Isaiah 28:15 through 9. Here in early 2017, Trump, Air Force One for a trip to Palm Springs. This is the same ramblings from the guy. Wow, this is weird. It's just like it goes in one direction, then immediately goes completely different direction. And there's just so much of it. Like this line up here. Think grave robbery in an attempt to obscure the reality of Little Mrs. Wolf. Content. Come up with some more of those wicked schemes, JB and company, so I can show some more of your true character.
The idea of a convicted felon wandering the woods, leaving dark and bizarre notes everywhere, is deeply alarming. Based on the content of the notes, it's clear the person isn't in their right mind, which posed a potential danger to Phil, especially since it was already dark, and he didn't seem to have any means of self-defense. While preparing to sleep in his tent, Phil decided to visit the shelter one last time. There, he found half of a Gatorade bottle hanging from the ceiling by a string with a note in the same handwriting as before. The message read, "Watch out for Yeet Mouse, the dead do walk and talk." Understandably unnerved by yet another creepy message, Phil tried to fall asleep in his tent, clearly on edge from everything that had happened that day. In Phil's situation, the last thing you'd want is to hear strange noises near the shelter in the middle of the night. But that's exactly what happened. While drifting off, he heard movement near the shelter. Peeking out of his tent, he spotted a lone man with a headlamp walking around the shelter. Not wanting to find out if this was the same person leaving the notes, Phil quietly made his way back to his truck in the middle of the night, constantly looking over his shoulder to ensure he wasn't being followed. Fortunately, Phil made it home safely, and as of 2024, he hasn't uploaded another video about the strange notes he found on the Appalachian Trail. It's likely that dozens of other hikers encountered the disturbing notes and the dead duck after Phil, but we'll probably never know exactly who wrote them or what they might have done if they had encountered unsuspecting campers. The Facts by HowToHunt.com is a channel focused on sharing outdoor knowledge and inspiring people to explore nature. In January 2022, the channel uploaded a chilling video showing a group of teenagers reacting to strange sounds coming from the woods.
I hear it? Get Trevor. Austin, get the light. Fuck. Hey! That was not an elk. Where's that coming from? Get my keys. Oh, get ready. Everybody, get in my truck.
When you're out in the woods at night, it's easy to confuse certain animal sounds with human screams. Foxes, coyotes, and bobcats are known to make noises that can sometimes resemble human yelling. However, in this case, I'm not aware of any animal capable of making that type of sound, especially considering how loud the banging on the trees was. While elk are known to rub their antlers against trees, it doesn't create a noise that's that loud or threatening. Many viewers in the video's comments pointed out that the sounds are similar to human screams, and it could have just been a person yelling in the woods in the middle of the night, which is unsettling in itself. Even though some viewers believe the video was staged, the uploader's reactions appear to be genuine. The only thing we can say for certain is that it was probably a good thing the group didn't encounter whoever or whatever was making those sounds.